Mike Melon. So I did some thinking about the sixth dimension and the seventh dimension. So this is a continuation. Just a casual talk, it's not supposed to be really fully educational, but it's really just supposed to give my theories and what I feel is truly the case with the sixth dimensional societies or civilizations. I already talked about how in my other video that we are typically in the fourth dimension, and most people are aligning to that dimension in terms of their frequencies and their perspectives about life and about one another. And what happens in the fifth dimension, I have my trusty picture once again. And what happens in the fifth dimension, as you can see, we do get to be far more connected in the last dimension on this picture here. So the sixth dimension, I looked everywhere. I really tried to find a six-dimensional shape coming from a cube. And the most that I have seen is that it is basically this shape, also doubled, and the lines then, here I'll go this way, it's this shape, and the lines are connecting to the other shape. So it basically enlarges it and makes it bigger. And um, being able to interpret that as far as how that actually applies and plays out in reality is that our world is currently trying to make the transition to the fifth dimension in terms of consciousness, in terms of the way that society works, in the terms of our perspectives on life and one another. They are trying to enlarge. And so a lot of people are in 4D, and they are out of the cube in a sense. So their perspectives are opening and they're receiving information from higher dimensions outside of Earth. And then so what sixth dimension is that's the extraterrestrial Stargate, how I see it, because the fifth dimension is a civilization on Earth in which you live within your constructs of Earth or your society, wherever you live on, whatever planet you live on, where you are completely attuned to one another, and you are living in that way where it's very peaceful and a blissful state of existence. And then what happens is, as that happens to a species, as a species becomes more peaceful and unified in spirit and in soul to one another, that they treat each other with total respect and peace, what ends up happening is the gateways to other worlds and other dimensions actually start to happen. So I see the sixth dimension as actually a portal, in the sense that what happens to a civilization is after they go through their fifth dimensional blissful state and almost like a utopian type of society. There are some issues, but people at that point in time, souls are very much awakened and in tune with one another, that they can fix things right away. We don't have wars in those types of civilizations. And so what ends up happening is basically the laws of physics is able to be studied more, because priorities shift in that type of society. In a utopian-based society, what ends up happening is people are less insecure and they are less defensive, and they're less in their own subjective egos, that priorities of actually studying the universe and exploring physics and exploring the way of how to manipulate matter actually come to fruition for that society. So the way that I see it is that if people in the next 25 to 50 years actually live on Earth in a fifth dimensional society, and live completely in peace with one another and understand one another, because we are heading that way, regardless if people don't think so or not. We truly are. We're having this massive awakening. And so if people are living in that way from 25 to 50 years in a fifth dimensional society base, what ends up happening is in about 100, anywhere from like maybe 100, I don't know, I'm thinking 100 to 300 years from that, I do see that technology can start to be incorporated in that peaceful living. So, one of the things that I understand about the Pleiadians is that they live amongst nature. They are incredibly peaceful, and they live in a society where they are surrounded by nature. Their architecture is surrounded by nature, and they are very much coexisting harmoniously with their world. But they do have advanced technology, and so they have both. They have advanced technology, but they also have the spiritual maturity and the harmonious type of soul living with one another, that they actually balance one another. It is said by many that on Earth what we have is we have a society that is technologically advanced, but actually very immature spiritually, and is still stuck in the ego, so we hurt one another. And so that is that's what's going on with Earth. Is technologically we are advancing, but the species is not really ready for that type of leap into technology, because they are still concerned about other basic survival instincts. So a sixth dimensional society is going to be those higher extraterrestrial beings that live in that state where they live in their utopian society for a very long time, and now they are able to actually have portals and connections to other planets and other races and other species, and there is no fear involved. I'm sure that there is going to be some type of run-in with those species that polarize themselves to being, negative and having that darker path. But for the most part, it does become kind of a galactic civilization where you have one planet that then has a portal or a way to openly communicate to another planet and another species. So that's what happens to Earth. So as we are in the fifth dimension and we live completely peaceful with one another, what ends up happening is then we start to communicate with other species outside of our Earth. Portals and ways of actually transferring our energy to other worlds starts to become more of a reality. And I mean this on a physical level, in the fact that we can actually get into a spaceship or some type of vehicle that will take us to another planet to meet our new friends, our new intergalactic friends. And that is because we have risen our vibration as a whole, as a species, where we actually can experience these other species in a physical level. So no longer are we just communicating telepathically to Pleiadians and other higher extraterrestrial beings, but now we're actually face to face doing business with other Pleiadians. So, and other extraterrestrials like the Sirians, Arcturians, and things like that. So that is the future for humanity. It definitely becomes kind of like what Star Wars was suggesting, in the idea that we do then enter into kind of a galactic communication with other beings around, other physical beings around the universe. So that is my idea of what a sixth dimension society looks like. It really is the next gateway into having peace on Earth in the fifth dimension, where we're having this utopian society where people are so advanced and have become so personally responsible for their own actions, and they live completely in respect of one another. And now priorities can shift in the sense that now we can look elsewhere, outside of our own selves and outside of our Earth. Now it's actually time to actually communicate and to actually meet and greet those extraterrestrials. So that is definitely where society is heading. I still think that in fifth dimension, we because we are living so peacefully with one another in the fifth dimension, and we are having that type of society, I do believe that extraterrestrials do stay in contact, and even some lower dimensional, as far as in the fifth dimensional type of beings, will actually make themselves physical to us, and they will be able to interact with us. But in the sixth dimension society, we expand on that even more. So then what ends up happening is even more extraterrestrials and different species are available for us to meet and to greet. And we actually have portals and vehicles of transportation that will actually take us to these planets. And then human souls, Terran souls, can have a choice of where they actually want to live, as long as a planet has the conditions for life for the Terran souls that need water and air and, you know, the basic fundamental needs of the human species. Then that's when we can move to other planets if we so choose and we want to live among other species. The way I see it is it's kind of like a macrocosm idea of the microcosm of what happens on Earth, in the sense that when an individual gets to be older, so you're born in your state, right? You're born in your neighborhood, wherever you are on the planet. You live with your family. You live with your family up into a certain age of when you can have personal responsibility to move out of that house, and then you can decide actually to live wherever you want around the world. That's exactly what happens to the human species. Once they reach that state of advancement and maturity, then they, as individual souls, actually can choose to live on different planets if they want, and if they have the right conditions for them. But we are finding out with science that there are a lot of planets that are okay for human life, and are available to them in the Goldilocks. I think it's called the Goldilocks realm. But I think what ends up happening is in the fifth dimension, when our priorities shift from materialism and making each other feel like crap so we can feel better, when those type of priorities shift in the human species, what ends up happening is that's when true technological advances actually can be made. And not just the scientists, but actually everybody as an individual can actually explore with the truth of energy and how it actually relates and how it works in the universe. And that is how then the doorways start to open up where you meet your galactic family. And that is how that happens. A lot of humans right now, they're not going to live beyond seeing that stage of humanity. But who's to say that you won't come back to experience that? So as Earth transitions and shifts and moves up as a whole, when the species mentally all move up, and then we enter into those next dimension states, um, just because you are not here in the physical does not mean that you will not experience that in some kind of way, because we do know that consciousness goes on. And who's to say that you don't come back to actually join then in the fifth dimension, in the sixth dimension societies? So I think a lot of humans are very stuck on the material world. So some of the attitudes are like, well, who cares about the other dimensions that are so far off in the future, because I'm not going to see it anyway, because I'm going to die here and then I'm not going to see it. But you have to understand that everything is interconnected and the entire universe plays out on frequencies and vibrations. So we're basically just in this big energy field, and we co-create with our creator that manifests reality around us as we go through our thoughts and our actions and our deeds. So when you actually put the effort now, even though maybe you're I don't know, 60, 70 years old right now. But if you still put the effort and the action to actually raise the vibrations and frequencies of the planet, your actions in doing that will bring you into the next stage. Even if you are gone physically, your consciousness will get to experience that peace on Earth in that fifth dimension. Even though you may not be here physically, you are still going to get to experience that in the fifth dimension. That is information that's coming from the Pleiadians as a Pleiadian starseed. I did not come up with that on my own. I hope it resonates with you. I feel that that is the best version of reality that can be offered to a soul, is the idea that you get to experience, even if you do die at a certain time, you get to experience the movement and the evolution of a species because you are part of that soul. You are interconnected. Several books, several divine inspirational texts from angelic messengers have actually stated that the human soul of Adam and Eve, let's just say Adam, the human soul that supposedly came from Adam was the very first human. It is a oversoul. Humanity is one soul. So we are individuals, but also in true reality, we are one soul. So that is why we all have to move together. And if we don't move at all, and if we don't move together, we don't really move anywhere. And that's what the human species has to realize, is that you move together. You are so interconnected, and the human soul is actually one soul that plays out its existence and its storyline in the universe. So what you decide as an individual does ripple out and affect the entire oversoul of humanity. And that is something that many humans do not know and are awakening to. Many other humans are awakening to, but that's the information that needs to really penetrate the heart of society in order for humans to move into five-dimensional society and ways. You have to learn of your interconnection with one another. You have to learn that you actually share the same oversoul. So you have individual souls, but you share one soul of mankind. And it's hard to imagine, but it's very easy to deal with. All you have to do is be personally responsible. Each and every one of you on Earth has to be personally responsible for what you do and how you advance your soul. And if each person actually is in that state of mind in which your quest is to advance your soul, to advance your learning, to advance your growth, everyone will move together. And that is the way that a species evolves and moves forward. And a lot of people are going to be pulled onto this path, even if they aren't necessarily actively thinking it or seeking it out, because it's just kind of the natural progression of life and of the universe. And we are being pulled into the fifth dimensional reality, no matter if people are not aware of it or not. Our world is trying to move into that peaceful utopian type of state, because that is the higher levels of consciousness. And that is how a species truly evolves before it is ready to be retired in a way. And a species gets to that point where it evolves to its highest state, and then it is not destroyed, but it's finished. It's finished. It's the end of the story. So in all of the holy books, when it talks about the end times, um, that is a symbol for that idea that um, once a species gets to the point where it evolves and cannot evolve anymore, and it's past that point of evolution, be it in a negative way, be it in the way that there's just no hope. The species has taken a very dark path. They've had some kind of dictator or tyrant, and people have allowed that dictator or tyrant to determine the future of the whole world and the species. And so they become less emotional. They become robots in a sense. They become more I guess, godless in a sense, like no feeling about spiritual, unseen realities. So if that happens to a species, then there becomes no more will to survive. And if a species loses its spirit, then that's when a species is kind of retired. It ends so that a new creation can be brought forth to try again and to move on from the learnings of that other species and to take that experience and to move forward and try life all over again. So even though it may be the end of Earth species, it's not going to be the end of life on Earth. And life always continues regardless if it's the human souls or not. So humans almost have to find a spirit inside of them that makes them want to stay on Earth, makes them want to fully take responsibility for their souls and love Earth so much that they want to stay, and they want to advance their species into the utopian blissful society that a species can have, so that the Pleiadians have and they live in, and then that will open up doors for the future. So that is my idea of what the sixth dimension entails. And I have a very different reality of what happens in the seventh dimension. So stay tuned for the next video on that.